Hello and Merry Christmas. This is the best time of the year, right? And what I think is so fun is all the cookie decorating, all the baking, all those things are always happening so much that we often don't think about maybe centerpieces for tables or even just something for us to enjoy throughout the holiday season. So there are so many different things. Do you do real? Do you do faux? I like to do a mixture. And if you remember, I had a video up of a fall kind of harvest style centerpiece. And this is kind of a play on that. It's using a couple of the same elements, but then giving it more of a holiday spin. And more one that you can kind of take and use little bits and pieces to kind of adapt to what you might have available. So on my table, I have started with some candles, of course. I think even if you can't have people over this year or as many people, you still always, our tradition growing up was always on Christmas Eve, we would have a candlelight meal. My mom always made a big deal of it when we were really little. I mean, to get my sister and I to eat whatever it would usually be some type of meat that probably wasn't that good, like that compressed chicken dish, every so often. We've totally elevated it and changed it since then, but we still do a candlelight meal. And I just think that always solidified the fact that you need candles. You need them. So I've started here with some candles. You can use whatever type you want. I just like something simple. And then I'm putting the same exact birch that I used in my previous fall video, because the birch, one, it looks Christmassy too, and two, it's not necessarily gonna steal a lot, but having something underneath gives you structure to be able to build upon and gives you height and dimension where you can use it. For this piece, we're gonna start with faux greens because they give you that illusion of that nice green color, and from a distance they look just as good. And as we build up on them with other elements, you're not gonna notice the fakeness. So I always like to start with something like a spray, swag, and they can be kind of hard to use, or you buy them and you think, wait, what do I do with it? I think you always forget that it's best to just cut them off. Cut them apart and separate them into different pieces, because then you can manipulate it however you want. You can keep it together too, but I think cutting it will make it easier for a long table to be able to use all these different pieces. So since I have this birch here, and it's like kind of that perfect thing to just start by building upon, I'm gonna start with my longer pieces, and that's why I got a spray, because then it has some long pieces and some shorter ones, and you can just start building up and around. So I made sure that I got some tall candles, because that is going to allow it so the candles don't get close, you know. We don't wanna burn the house down with our greens, which, okay, another thing with real greens, as they dry, what is something you really need to think of? They're dry. So they will like catch on fire and be a burning inferno in no time. So you have to be really careful with that inside. So I'm gonna start just laying these greens around, finding different places where they can kind of just go. And what's great is too, you can hide some of the imperfections you don't like in other things. And so that birch is giving me that structure to start with, to kind of give it some, you know, some different shapes and to have it fall in different ways. So I'm gonna keep laying the greens around, and then we're gonna add in some fun stuff. The greens are all on, and now I'm using, and I cut it apart again, some faux magnolia. You could use real magnolia, but again, inside, we have such a dry environment indoors during the winter, especially with the heat on, that dries out fresh greens really quickly. So they look beautiful, and they might keep looking beautiful for a few weeks from a distance, but the moment you get close to them, they are really brittle, they break apart. So having some faux items like magnolia, and you have to admit, like, they have good fakes anymore. And I will go through times where I'll do real, but if I'm gonna do real, I do it usually maybe, you know, a couple days before the event or before Christmas, so it can just be enjoyed during that time. So I'm gonna just kind of put in that magnolia around, and again, I'm starting to just push in some of the stems so I can hide them. And then we're gonna add some more fun elements. So for some real, I'm using some seeded eucalyptus. I love seeded eucalyptus. It has the flat, broader leaf as opposed to the traditional eucalyptus. So one trick you could do if you want it to last longer is you can buy these little floral picks that hold water. A lot of times a rose will be in them when you get a single stem rose. You can fill them with water, cut a fresh end, put the eucalyptus in it, and then hide that end down in your arrangement. And then that will help it last a little bit longer. It's a great alternative. It does take a little bit of time. You'd have to order those little picks, but if you want it to extend that season a little bit, totally easy. What I like about eucalyptus is it has great texture and it falls really easily, because really what we're doing here is creating kind of like a living garland, I would say, of sorts. And what's nice about it is you can create it to be whatever look you want, And then especially with all those faux elements, if you just have 1 or 2 real elements like the eucalyptus and say it dries out in like a week or maybe doesn't look quite as good, you could pick out the real eucalyptus and switch that out so you can kind of make it last without having to replace the whole thing, which I love. So I'm gonna put in the eucalyptus at different points, and then I'm gonna start putting in some pops of color just to kind of finish it off, and then we're gonna hide the center. For some final pops of color, guys, nothing screams Christmas more than a holly berry, an Ilex berry, and you can find these pretty easily this time of year. Now again, they're real, they're fresh, they're not gonna last forever. So maybe think of that more as a closer to the date or a few days before or even a day before, you're gonna use that. Or you could have it and keep it in water and then place it on the table right with. But you could also do, I have some preserved branches of red and they've been preserved and colored, but they give you that pop of color and these will last all throughout the season. So I like having those different options and then being able to kind of layer them into the table and use them in different ways, because this is gonna give you, it's gonna give you that, just that nice quality where you can have something for the whole season. And that's what I try to do. I try to have different, when I'm doing something like this, I try to have, options for myself even of, okay, this is gonna last maybe the whole season, this is gonna last part of the season, and then kind of how to be able to play with that and use different items to kind of extend the life of something like this. Because when you go to the time, you go to the effort of doing this, you wanna be able to enjoy it throughout a whole season and just have a lot of use out of it. So as I put some of that red around, and I wanna put just a couple, I just think it's so fun. And you can find preserved branches at large craft stores. At this time of year, you can usually find it at garden centers because they're getting in all the fresh greens and they're getting them in to mix it in. So I have kind of built off the center. And as you see here in the center, I have a lot of stems and ends from a lot of the pieces and they're kind of just sticking up. Now you could hide all those down if you want to make it have more of a garland feel, but I like to kind of give it a finished look with some pine cones. So I just have some different sized pine cones, different shapes, and it's kind of like that centerpiece, like the cornerstone you would have maybe on a mantle to have some different sized pine cones right around there. And it's fun just to be able to push them in and kind of hide a lot of those imperfections that are in the center. And you could do that not just with pine cones, you could use whatever maybe you would have on hand. I also had some, I think, preserved and dried pomegranates that would look really good. They look really good with the one kind of red that you could use these too. And you could do fruit even. You could put some pears in here or clementines or tangerines that are really festive this time of year. Kind of whatever goes with your color scale of what you're looking for. You can definitely kind of try to push in. And if you want to just extend that throughout and have it make more sense, just add the pine cone somewhere. And that kind of then finishes it off and gives it kind of that cohesive look. And what I love about this can work for whatever you have on hand. So if you're wanting this to kind of match your room, you might be adding, some of the ornaments off your tree. I do that a lot of times. That's always my trick, is to pull just a couple select ornaments off. If a tree is really close by or in the same room, you can put those down into here, and then it's mimicking your tree. The color scheme is going together, and it's a way to kind of fill in those gaps or those holes and have it make sense. So it's really a custom floral piece or a custom arrangement fitted for your home, your table, your style, your look, your colors. This is what I love. I love to bring inspiration and try to create things so when people come over, you have this custom look that just shows a little bit more time and effort. And isn't that the point of the holidays, to have something extra that is just fun to have for your guests? So I hope you enjoy this. I hope you're inspired just to think of what you might have in your homes to be able to use, because you'd be amazed if you look around, maybe even your own yards, some of these items that you're gonna have, or some of those old garlands you have in your basement that you're not using, or break them apart, cut them up, and put them into an arrangement. As always, you guys, you know what helps me the most, and what I love seeing is when you share these videos around. Tag a friend, share the video. It helps me so much, and it helps so many people see how easy these things can be and be inspired for it themselves. Because this whole Christmas season, all these videos I'm putting out, it is just a way for me to invite you all into my farmhouse, come over to the farm, do these things together, so hopefully you can do them in your home too. So until next time, hope you put something together, hope you're inspired, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas.